Hi there, welcome to the archives. So I'm here to do another episode. This one is called Three Things We Can Learn from Octavia Butler's Care. What? Oh. This one is called Three Things We Can Learn from Octavia Butler's character, Lauren Olamina, right now. So again, I've been thinking about this. I've been doing a blog series on Octavia Butler. I've done two, I believe, already. I have two more recorded that I'll upload later. But I thought in the wake of Roe versus Wade being overturned, that I would do a blog looking at three things that we can learn from Lauren Olamina. So if you don't know Lauren's a character in Octavia Butler's The Parable of the Sower and Parable of the Talent. Read the books if you haven't. You should. I'm sure you have. Okay, so number one is strategize and be strategic. So Lauren was always 10 steps ahead and super hyper vigilant. She was also a hyper empathic person, meaning she felt a lot of people's energy. She shared their pain as well as their pleasure. She just shared a lot of emotions, meaning at any given time, as a highly sensitive person, she was always on. Her nervous system was always activated, which can be really stressful to the body. But as we see, it also was what saved her. She read a lot of books and studied different plant lives, herbal remedies, and self defense skills. So she was constantly consuming information and knowledge. She spoke politics with her father. She paid attention to politics. She read the papers, um, was attentive to what people in networks were saying. She kept a bag packed at all times in her room in case of an emergency. So a lot of people would be like, that's a little extreme. That's paranoia. Well, in the end, when her community was hijacked, she was the one that was actually prepared because she had her bag packed and ready to go, right? So similar to folks that are pregnant who are waiting to give birth, right? You have your bag packed in case your water breaks and you have to go to the emergency to deliver, or if it's a home birth, I'm not sure. But like, basically, you're prepared, right? You see a doula, you have a midwife, you're preparing for that transition. This is kind of the same way. Make sure that you have your preparations. I'm saying this, and I'm not necessarily any more prepared than the next person. But these are some of the themes coming out from the book that I thought I would share if others haven't already, and I'm sure they have. So in her bag, she had extra clothing, she had money, she had a map, she had seeds for different plants that she could plant for food, like acorns. In the novel, acorn bread was a huge thing, so she had some of those acorns in her pack to make sure that she could have something to eat in case a crisis happened. Different documents that she would need that were important to her. Her father and others had taught her how to use a gun, so she did know how to use a gun, and they would often go out and have target training. And it wasn't just men, the women in the community were also taught how to use and carry a gun in case of an emergency to protect themselves. I know that topic is really contentious right now, but that is something that helped her navigate that dystopian reality in the book, was knowing how to use a gun. So she also knew that if she went out into the world as a woman, or a hyper femme, that would bring her added danger, and so she strategically chose to pass as a man for most of the novel. So she bends her gender for most of it. She passes as a man. Others have written about this and the problematics as well as the benefits of doing this, and they've compared it in the literature to folks that passed as black people who in the past passed as white, right? So we know that that's a thing that would happen. Same with Lauren. So she passed as a man when she went into the world because she knew that it would be safer. People wouldn't mess with her in the same way. The same theme shows up in Wild Seed. I'm reading Wild Seed again right now. And similar themes show up where the character will often transform herself into a male body just in order to protect herself. So again, in my PhD, I use others to talk about this kind of the tension there as well as the benefits. What else? She kept, in case of an emergency, what she did is she made copies of all the important documents that she had, like birth certificates, her marriage license, deeds to the land, all of those documents that were really important that she knew that if she kept it at home and something happened, if there was a fire, a flood, or later Christian America and Jared's Crusaders actually end up overtaking her property and turning it into like a prison, an enslavement plantation, like basically a slave plantation, where they take over her house. And so in that case, she was prepared because she already had all of the documents in a safe off-site, which was safe. Basically, even when folks told her that she was being extra and like taking it way too seriously, she expected the worst. And when things popped off, it was her who was a little bit more prepared. Not to say that she wasn't rattled or it didn't throw her off. Absolutely it did. It completely affected her life. It transformed her life. She lost her whole family, with the exception of one brother who she ends up finding way years later. But her father is murdered, her stepmother is murdered, her brothers are gone, her whole community is pretty much, her life as she knows it is completely lost. And so what this looks like right now, I'm just paying attention to what folks are saying online, and I'm just trying to amplify their voices because I can't pretend that like I have any solutions or I'm an expert in this. I tend to look to others on these topics to see what they want, what they need, and how to creatively intervene. So a lot of people are asking for, I'm seeing folks in like Canada, as well as other states that aren't as impacted, telling people, you know, if you ever need a place to stay, I can offer you free housing. If you have to travel out of state for an abortion, just hit me up. Let me know, and you can stay with me. I've seen folks in Canada do that as well too, letting people know if you ever need to come up to Canada, we can support you. What you don't do is expect Indigenous and Native communities to be able to now have you come onto reserves to do that. That's not what you that's not it. You don't want to do that. Now, when a lot of folks have been like anti-Indigenous, don't even care about land back, don't even know what territory they're on, like you can now turn to Native people to save you. Don't do that. Mutual stretching, that's basically mutual stretching, right? I can help you, you don't have as much, like where can we balance out different resources, donate to mutual aid. I'm seeing folks saying donate to abortion funds as well too. For those who are able, show up to protest, right? And also understand that not everybody can protest. So give space for folks to do online organizing and let those who are burned out rest, right? A lot of communities have been active advocating for this for decades and years. And of course, we all need hands on deck, but we also understand people have different disability needs, they need different accommodations, so on and so forth. So just give space for all of that. There's something that all of us can do at this moment, and it doesn't look like what you might think is the best solution at the time. So this might look like supplying medical kits, or even, you know, offering, buying like milk to counteract tear gas and pepper spray, donate to food banks or feed folks if you're able to, contact your mayors, cabinet members, and other members of parliament. Let people cry. Also the emotional and the affective part, right? Let people feel what they need to at this point. If they need to vent, let them vent. Let them feel whatever it is that they need to feel without policing or shutting it down. Don't minimize or gaslight, right? If somebody's crying over this, don't be like, I don't understand why you're crying. Like, that's not helpful. Just stop. Just stop. Being tender with yourself. Stay hydrated. Wear sunscreen. Don't do as I say. Don't do as I do. Say what? Anyways, you know what I mean. Don't be on that hotep stuff. Be mindful of what you post on social media. Also understand that surveillance extends beyond social media and technology. So be careful what you are writing in your journals. Be careful what you're writing in your phone notes. Be careful what you're writing on your computer. I'm not trying to fearmonger you, but this is the future, right? Technology looks like so many different ways right now. It's just even writing on random scraps of paper. Just be mindful. of those things. I hate to say it, but do be hyper vigilant when necessary. And also heal your nervous system, right? Speak out, talk to a therapist if you need to. Just do whatever you can to stay as regulated as possible, because a dysregulated nervous system will lead to a lot of mistakes, a lot of missteps, and more issues and problems. So take care of your mental, emotional, physical, and spiritual. Number two is find your people. So once she was on the road, and even before that, she had really been big on community and immediately started to find her people, right? So Lauren found who else was left in her community. Zara, she found Harry, and together they set off to find quote unquote greener pastures. I don't know what that looks like. They traveled by foot from LA, where the LA area, all the way up to Northern California. Um, knowing knowing that basically there's safety in numbers, she started to pay attention to who else was on the road, who could join them. So she recruited a lot of people. She made sure she was focusing on growing her network. She knew she couldn't go it alone and would only survive with the help of others. Again, do as I don't say as I do, not as I do. I don't know. I can't speak today, but you know what I'm trying to say. The hypocrisy is real. So I'm being completely transparent. These are all things I'm working on, right? I'm just sharing what's coming up from the book. So don't come for me. She collected people and delegated tasks. They shared labor. They all contributed something. She slowly built trust and was honest, but when trust was shaky, she observed new people. She observed new people and, excuse me. She paid attention to their patterns. She learned them as best as she could, right? Together, they looked out for one another. They had each other's back. They took turns watching and guarding their property. When everybody was sleeping, they always had at least two people up that were paying attention to the surroundings. They did that every single night. They paired off together to make sure that somebody was on neighborhood watch protection. Whether it was a campground, property, it didn't matter. They had practice drills for what to do in case of an emergency. So you know how there's drills of what to do in case of a fire, who's a marshal, who's got this, who does this. Same thing with school shootings right now. A lot of teachers and students are learning what to do in case of the worst case scenario. That's what they would do. They would have practice drills. Who does this in case of a scenario. We're not just in it for the first time. We practice what to do. Didn't always work, but at least they were better prepared. So think about your pods as well too. A couple episodes ago, I talked about the Bay Area Transformative Justice Collective and Mia Mingus, their idea of pods and pod mapping, or even like mad mapping. Think through those. Who would be part of your pod? Ask them if they want to be part of your pod. Respect people's boundaries. Set your own boundaries. Poor communication skills tend to erode most of our relationships, including my own. So work on that. Speak up for yourself. Understand it will come with some resistance and people might even walk away. That's okay, right? Apologize when you're wrong. Hold yourself accountable. Don't be afraid to let folks know when they're wrong. Give people space. Take space. Just because one another, if you say you care. If you don't care, be honest, right? Don't mislead or deceive people into thinking that you care when you actually don't, because it's not helpful right now. We need as much as transparency and honesty as possible. If you don't fuck with somebody, just let them know. Singing Kumbaya around the campfire isn't necessarily the goal. That's not the objective here. Getting out alive whole, getting alive softer and more aware, that might be though. And number 3 is sustainable living. That's another thing we can learn from Lauren. She budgeted what little she had and was wise about where and how she rationed items and spent money, right? So they needed money for groceries. She would figure out, how much groceries do we need? Do we need to get gunpowder or bullets? I don't know how guns work. But those are all things they needed to think about. Water was something that was scarce at the time. So like, how much water do we buy? How much water can we use per day? All of those things were crucial. She learned early how to garden and to grow her own foods. She learned the different types of trees. They planted trees to honor their ancestors. She learned what herbs were good for what. They built their own home from the ground up. So that's something she knew how to do. I see a lot of folks building their own homes right now, or like tiny homes. They cut from the woods, all of that. They built um, their own homes from the ground. They grew their own food. I said that already. They sold their own food. They learned different trades and skills that they could sell to make extra money. So some would build furniture, others taught courses, some did art to sell. They all had something like side hustles to bring in money. They taught each other more than one language. So often she would ask them to learn English and Spanish so they'd be able to communicate with not just English speaking folks, but also Spanish speaking folks. The kids went to school on the property once public school was no longer funded. So a lot of, in the novel, privatization is a huge thing. Public schools, basically, no one is educated anymore in the novels, which we've seen that more and more. Although in our case, we're also seeing certain schools being funded. I went to a Catholic school, so that's something that I'm going to stay out of that conversation. They had libraries on the property. They lived together communally. So what that might look like. So I recently got an OffGrid bundle online. I don't remember who I got it from. It's on social media. But I got the OffGrid bundle. It was at a great price. These are things that I say I always want to look into in the future, and I don't always do so. And I still have to go through it and take my time, but it's something I want to take seriously. So here's what I want to share from the OffGrid bundle. Some of the topics included vehicle dwelling, so folks that are living out of their vans or RVs, that may be more affordable. I know Stephanie Perry talks about like pet sitting and house sitting. That's something I've been doing. Pet sitting for folks, which has been also really helpful, not just economically, but just even like for my own mental health, getting to meet new people, taking care of pets, and like just the most adorable, amazing pets. All of those are kind of, you're within a community of trust, you're building communities of trust and taking care of each other. Again, that's mutual stretching, right? It's beneficial for both. The dogs or the pets aren't going to daycare, which can be really pricey. They're staying in their own environment, and then also folks are saving money on accommodations. I think that's those kind of models of mutual stretching are really great. Other topics included herbal remedies. So folks are learning the different herbal remedies. Again, go to a professional. Don't just be taking things just to take things. I definitely do that sometimes, and like you have to be mindful that folks will listen and do so. So like also use discernment, use your own intuition, like you're grown adults. If somebody's telling you to do something and you haven't looked into it, there's many things that I've done. I'm like, oh, that didn't work out for me. Trial and error. But be mindful on both sides, right? Don't just go taking things willy-nilly if you haven't spoken to a professional. And also don't offer those advice if you're not a professional. It's a subject. There was advice on like how to ferment different things, living a minimalist and green lifestyle. A lot of people are talking about going vegan and going green because that's more sustainable for the environment. I personally still eat meat, and that's something I'm working on. Also, I've been thinking a lot about folks who are low income and rely on the food bank, for instance. Right? Try to, if you can, donate money or like produce to food banks, because it could be really hard to live on a decent diet when you're going to the food bank, right? If you're gluten intolerant, that's really hard. I've been eating a lot of bread, not only because it's delicious, but that's what's offered. If beef is being offered, and I would prefer chicken or something else, like I'm gonna eat it because I need that. A lot of the foods are also like preservatives, and aren't the highest in nutritional value. So these are some of the things we can think about. What else? Remote side hustles, right? So being a digital nomad, finding remote work if you're able to, starting a business, micro business. Again, these are things that take money and like can also be very classist. I recently attended a webinar where folks were talking about like public housing and the beauty and brilliance of community within public housing, right? So they were saying like apply to public housing right now if you need to. Don't let the shame get to you. If that's something that you need, put the pressure on the system and apply for public housing. Detox recipes. They talked about natural beauty care. They talked about building off-grid homes, tiny homes. Again, this is also like really classes, I think, sometimes, but like it can also be, you can also save money in those kind of ways, and those options might not always be available to all of us. Birthing, wild birthing, yeah. So I've seen TikTok videos where folks are showing others how to like repurpose different things, DIY projects, how to grow your own foods, or like reusing lemon seeds to grow more lemons, um, growing pineapples, making your own fertilizer out of like eggs. Like there's so many different things I've been seeing online that's actually really really productive for the future we're heading into. You want to learn how to be as self-sustainable as possible because you can't rely on your government. They're not coming to save us. They're not going to save you. If anything, they would rather you. Anyways, you know what I'm talking about. Die. There's so many different resources. Pay attention. You may need it one day. At this rate, you probably will. And that's it for me. It's over 20 minutes. Stay safe out there. Take care of one another. Be kind. Strategize. Rest. Don't forget to like, subscribe, or share. And until next time, in solidarity. Thanks. Bye.